been something? But anyway, it's been good. It's been good, yes. We've done a lot. We've made a lot of progress. In these past 3 months with our new CEO and president, it's been very good to see how we've been able to move forward here at the African American Museum. Now, I hope you take a moment, actually more than a moment, and check out the galleries upstairs, the folk art gallery down the hallway to the right, and see these wonderful exhibitions. We've got a sculpture exhibition by Maurice Yangan. We've got Omega Psi Phi fraternity celebrating their 90th anniversary here in Dallas. And then, of course, based on what we're talking about today, we have an exhibition about preserving our culture and preserving cultural memory. So that will be the topic of our discussion today. And I hope you'll hang in here with us. And I think these young men will have a lot to say. Now, I'm going to shut up here and turn it over to the new CEO and president, Lisa Brown Ross.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. You all sure look good today. Everyone is so dapper and we're smiling in spite of everything that's going on. It's a good day. What I like to say is this is the day that the Lord has made and we're going to rejoice. You know what I'm talking about. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to Michael for bringing us together. One of the things we want to do is more of this, more of bringing you here to your home. It looks like Wakanda forever. But this is a formal welcome to the museum, your home, a place where we gather, a place where we have healing. I want to thank you for your time, for taking the time from your busy schedules to be with us here today. The discussion is around protecting cultural memory. And I want you to think about that for a minute. I did. When I first started 3 months ago, I talked with Margie Reese, the Chief Operations Officer, and she told me about the artwork from Mr. Imagination that was in the basement and her vision for bringing that to life. A brother from Chicago that created art out of bottle caps. And for a couple of months, I wondered, what could the tagline be for the African American Museum Dallas that describes who we are, what we do, what our mission is, without quoting the entire mission? Nike has, we just do it. Coke has, it's the real thing. What could the African American Museum articulate that really gets to the heart and the root of describing who we are? Our role is to protect cultural memory. So that's our tagline. That's what you will see moving forward. That will be our hashtags. That is what we have been called to do for a time such as this, is to protect not just the history, not just what you see on the walls, but to protect the very memory of who we are as a community and as people. The other day I read this quote that I wanted to share. It said, I don't remember who said this, but he said, history is not just about what's been recorded, but what's been left out. Our history is so important, it shapes the world. That's who we are. My vision as the new president and CEO for this sacred place is very bold, but everyone in this room is a part of it. I want people who walk in here to get chills when they come into this space, when you look up at the ceiling, when you see the floors, when you walk through the exhibit, when you go downstairs and you see the educational plaza that our children will be learning from. I believe that education is in the libraries, will be the future in the libraries and in the museums. Finally, I want to say to everyone in this room, because of where we are in this time in history, especially the brothers that look so fabulous, because this is their discussion, but to all of you in here, I want to say I'm proud of you. I want to say I'm proud of you for your resilience, your tenacity, your brilliance, your courage, and your accomplishments. You will be tested. This is going to be a time of testing for us. But I want to encourage you and inspire you to push on, to press forward, and to be brave. I want you to remember that this is your house. This is your house. This is not my house only. This is not just my dream only. This is our house. And we will protect our house. So thank you so much for coming out. Thank you. I'm looking forward to a great discussion. Thank you, Michael, again, for your willingness to pull this together. I appreciate you very much. So thank you. We're in for a treat. We're in for a good time. And if there's anything I can ever do to support, to help, to inspire, to encourage, please let me know.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and supporting the cause. And my name is Michael Simon, External Manager for the African American Museum. And it's called Protecting the Cultural Memory. That's the name of the program. And I chose these guys because they know exactly what that takes. They're all doing that on a daily basis. And I'd like you gentlemen to introduce yourselves. Doesn't matter what order.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for bringing us here. So my name is Councilmember John Bowers III, serving Raleigh, Texas. Protecting cultural memory is very important to all of us up here. Currently, what I do, besides being a council member, I'm also a vice president of JP Morgan in our cybersecurity space. So happy to be here.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Traylon Rogers. I'm a Dallas native. I am an attorney here at Birmingham, downtown. I'm a graduate of Dillon University in New Orleans, Louisiana, at HBCU. And then I went to Berkeley for law school and moved back here and started working here. Glad to be here.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nicholas Hawkins. I'm currently a student at Dallas College, and I have the pleasure of serving as parliamentarian for the Dallas-Fort Worth Urban League Young Professionals. I'm a Dallas native as well. I've spent over 10 years in the NAACP, and I am so excited to be in this cultural artifact talking about how do we protect cultural memory today. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Great to see y'all. Thank y'all for coming.
My name is Ian Coemo, and I serve with the United Way of Metropolitan Dallas, and I focus on advancing outcomes in education and human health. So glad to be here and the institution of this museum for bringing this conversation together and just, bringing a group of guys. I've been watching them for years. You don't know this, but I'm super proud of what they're doing and just happy to be part of this conversation. So thank you.
Well, hey y'all, my name is Kendall Locke, and professionally I am Deputy Chief of Staff for Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. We currently sit in the district, so welcome to Texas 30. Aside from that, I've been involved in politics pretty much all my life, since I was a little boy. I graduated from the University of North Texas in a Fort Worth native, so glad to share the space and again to the museum tonight, but just to all the folks for bringing this amazing panel together with some amazing individuals that I have the pleasure of not only serving with the community, but colleagues. So appreciate y'all.
Okay, first question I have, that's going to be for Cianci Coemo. Do you feel the pressure to represent Black culture in a specific way? How do you navigate that?
Every day. I think for me, I immigrated here when I was 9 years old. So my mom and dad, they're both from Cameroon. And I was born in Germany. I lived there for 6 years. And then I lived in Cameroon for 3.5 years. And then I came here when I was 9. So coming to Dallas specifically was a cultural shock for me in itself. Because I went from a kind of all-Black environment to an all-white environment in Germany to here with this cohesiveness. And so for me as an African immigrant, when you come from that first generation American, you leave everything that you know behind, your family, your friends, your home, what you grew up with. So I had to really navigate all these different spaces at a very early age. And so as an African immigrant, education is super important. And so everything we do is always education, the American dream. And so as that, we had two options in life, right? To become a doctor or engineer, right? And so I tell my parents what I do now, they still don't understand what I do. And now I have no idea what I do because everything they see through the lens of education. But I think for me, navigating the African experience and also the African American experience has been quite interesting, right? I think when I came here, there was so much things that I learned for the first time, like waves. That was the coolest thing to me when I was like, how do you get waves on your hair? And things like that. Even the lingo, the swag, and that's something that I just learned through movies, watching Eddie Murphy and comedy. I gravitated towards that because I thought that was a Black experience. And so coming from an African American experience to that Black experience that I go back home to in Cameroon has been quite kind of challenging balancing those two. But I think as time, I get to spend time with these brothers up on the stage and they teach me how to just move forward, understanding how to navigate different spaces. And great mentors went to Barack Obama Leadership Academy, who introduced me to the museum as Robert Addison. And so had some great mentors in my life that really enabled me to navigate those challenges and preserve that culture that I grew up with in Belton to really create that experience for myself and others.
Okay. This next question is going to be from John. What stereotypes have you encountered about your culture and how have they impacted your perspective? Being in politics.
No, Mike, thank you for that. I think my mother's not here, but one thing that I think about stereotypes, who in here has been asked, can I touch your hair, all that kind of stuff, can they feel your beard, whatever it may be. So my mother wrote this Crown Act for the state of Texas, right? So understanding that we can be human and be ourselves and have the ways that Cianci was talking about. I actually just got I tried to do that today, actually, get a haircut before I came, but those stereotypes, also stereotypes of timeliness, cleanliness, are you clean, different things like that people deal with a lot in our Black culture. I think, especially serving, so I serve Rowlett, Texas. Rowlett, Texas is 46.7% white, 23% Black, and then around 18, 19% Hispanic. So yeah, you deal with a lot of stereotypes in that type of environment. They are amazed to see me when I come into City Hall, but I'm happy that I stand up there every day and say, hey, I am the first African American man to sit here in the seat. But those are, thank you, Kendall. but those are the things that you deal with. We deal with stereotypes every day we walk out the door. It's how you dress, how you look, how you speak. Just because you're educated as Traylon said, Dillard is the best HBCU. I went to Morehouse, so I can't vouch for that. Yeah, those are some stereotypes that I've dealt with, Mike. So thank you for the question.
No problem. Thank you for answering. And this is for Kendall. How does understanding the past help you understand current social and racial issues?
I think that's the foundation of everything. You can't understand where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And two, you can't generation is creating. But I think we all got to realize that, all of us on this panel, we are able to do the things that we do, operate in the spaces that we operate in, because there were people before us that laid that foundation. And it's a race, it's a relay. So we're now operating with that baton, and we're running to full speed to ensure that we can do what we need to do. But I think, again, as we see things that we're dealing with now, you talk about the removal of DEI, for example. You talk about what's happening just in general with the Department of Education. All of these things that are happening politically and socially, these are fights that have happened years and years, decades ago. So these aren't new fights. They're reignited fights. But I think that there are some very important lessons that we can learn from the past and learn what maybe didn't work. And then it's up for us and our generation and those who are still here to say, okay, let's refine that and let's actually do what we need to do to ensure that we are making some real progress. So I think if you're not leaning or being intentional with, learning about the past, and really taking the time to sit down and have conversations with individuals that actually lived through that time or that actually put in work through that time, then I think you're doing not only yourself but the community a disservice.
I agree with that. And this is for Nicholas. Nicholas, why is protecting Black culture important to you?
Thank you for that question. And protecting the Black culture is of utmost importance to me personally, because I'm a product of it. And understanding where I came from, with my familial roots being in northeastern Louisiana, deriving from northern Florida, and then also South Texas. It's something that, sitting at the feet of my elders, really gave me the credence for the work that I do through the civil rights organizations that I've been able to work with over the past decade. Understanding the foundation, like Kendall said, that was laid for us to put us in position to face the types of challenges that we're dealing with in this current moment. It gives you a sense of power and belonging to understand that there's nothing really new under the sun. But we can chart out new strategies for how we address these age-old issues. And at the core of it is, if you don't have a deep understanding of your culture, what comes together to make you who you are collectively, then you really won't have the nuance needed to address those big ticket issues. So that's why preserving the Black culture is of utmost importance to me.
Thank you guys for that. And this is Traylor. What's a lesser known story from Black history that you think more people should?
Yeah, I knew I was going to get this one.
Man, I picked that one for you because it looked like you would answer.
I'm not telling the story, but I think that along the lines of the question, I'm going to do what all good attorneys do
And what is that?
Skate around the answer. So, but I'll give you what I think. For me, I think that I want to say this in the most appropriate way. I think that Black folks, everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody does, but it's well known that it was said that after JFK, that Negroes would vote Democrat for that time. That's well known. And the reason being is because JFK gave us something to believe in and gave us something that felt real to us. But on the flip side of that, prior to that point in history, we had folks who were aligned with what we thought, what we kind of identify now as our things, right? Like abortion and the way in which we perceive the right to vote, those amendments abolition of slavery. But what we don't, and what is not often talked about, is those folks who were supporting those things, our white counterparts, and other folks who were non-Black folks who were helping us, were anti-Black, but they were just supportive of what themselves. For instance, Abraham Lincoln, Joe Biden quoted him in his inauguration speech. He said, "If I go down in history, it'll be for this, and it's because my whole soul is. I'm committed because my whole soul is in it." But he was not committed because his whole soul was in it. He went down in history for the Emancipation Proclamation for sure, but it was because of what came with it for him. Likewise, Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood, wrote a speech. I forget the name of it, but I think it Congress, in which she said that she was not a strong supporter of abortion, but she was a supporter of reproductive rights, but not for black people. And so there was a case in 1945 and in 1920, Buck versus Bell, and then Skinner versus the state of Oklahoma, in which both those, Virginia and Oklahoma, were sterilizing black women so that they would not have those undesirable traits, so that wouldn't continue to happen in perpetuity. And she was okay with that. But we are out here championing her cause just because it's convenient for us. But what we don't know is what's associated with it. So a lot of times, as black people will say, we're going to stop supporting this because of its roots. But we don't really look at the roots of the things that we should look at. We just look at the roots that we can see the iceberg of those things that are closer, that we can see. We can see that, in more recent history, the roots of it. But there are things that we support as black people that have roots that are much deeper, but we don't question or we don't look at it because we assume that these folks, the Margaret Sangers and the Abe Lincolns, had our best interests in heart. Now, did we benefit? Absolutely. But should we continue to champion those causes? I don't know. But I think that those are two things that I would say that it's not lesser known, but I think it's probably interesting when you look at the perspective of that.
So you got that question for a reason. You answered it right.
Well, and let me add something real quick, because I think Traylon mentioned a good point around should we still champion them. And if we decide to continue to champion those issues or those ideas or whatnot, how do we champion them in a way that's rooted in pure blackness? So,
Thank you for that. Okay, this is for all you guys. Do you feel there's a collective responsibility within your generation to uplift and preserve black culture? We can start with John.
Like, I don't know why you want to start with me.
Because I know you.
Right. But I'll piggyback off of, first of all, in short, I think the answer is yes. I think our generation has to pick up that baton and move forward, because if we don't use the wisdom of our older generations with the energy of our generation, we'll never move forward anywhere, right? But I think underscoring what Kendall said earlier, if we fail to reflect on the past, we will be doomed to repeat the past. And I think that's because one of the biggest things I said, even running my campaign this year, David, I see you in the crowd, the candidate for Raleigh City Council, so thank you for running alongside me. I felt like I was born in 1965 than 2025. We can clearly see that when they're still attacking our voting rights, they're attacking all these things currently right now that give you the precedent that yes, we are in the same fight, as Kendall said. We need to glean what we learned from our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and say, hey, how can we move this forward? But without us, we're not going to move in a direction. And I think Traylon's conversation is what we just need, like, hey, what things do we continue to champion, and what do we not, so we can move forward?
Agreed.
Yeah, I think so. Two things. First is that I think so the answer is yes, right? But I think we're in a real crisis right now. One of the posts that I live by was originated with Kwame Kilpatrick, the former mayor of Detroit, who was sentenced, who went to federal prison for crimes he committed, white-collar crimes, I'll add. And he said, don't let your character, he said he let his character take him places, his talent take him places his character couldn't keep him. I think we have a real crisis right now with black men in particular, and young black men. And this is sort of, I'm probably going to be a little ashamed to say this after I say it, but one of my favorite artists is Summer Walker. She says, I want to star with your mom because she should have whooped your head. I hate to blame it on everybody's mom, but the thing is that there is a lack of discipline and a lack of, we don't teach morality, we don't teach ethics anymore. And so I think we just do what feels good now. And it's like, the quote that says, when you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And so we have a real problem with black leadership and black examples to follow. And it's not because we aren't, they exist. So number one, we're not amplifying enough. And number two, there aren't enough. We're really in a huge crisis. I worked for the federal government prior to my current job, and I saw so many people of color come through there and were sentenced. I worked for the federal government, so it's not like down the state where you weren't. If you came before us, you were. It was serious. You're gonna be in there for a while. I remember one time this guy got 256 months, and I was like, I don't know how to calculate that. But it was his life, and he was 40. 256 months at 40 years old. It's because as Black people, we're super talented, but we have character traits and character flaws. And I'm not saying that other people don't, but that's not my concern. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about us. And I think that we can preserve our future, and preserve our past and protect our future by just going back to the basics. Morality, civility, human decency, the things that keep us together. There's a lady who won a Nobel Prize, her name is Olga Tocharkova. She says that try tenderness. And tenderness, she says, is the things that connect us, not things that separate us. There are many more things that connect us than separate us. But we've just got to find those things. I think we've got to dig deeper and continue to pour into our children. And seriously, I'm like someone, we got to start with parents.
Yes, and so the points that were previously made, just having squarely focused on the cultural war, is that, I'll be honest, I believe we are squarely losing right now. I believe that we have, along the way, lost control of the narrative that defines the trajectory of our community. And I think that's a crisis and tragedy of misleadership that we see. And I think that the role of us in our generation specifically, I believe we're all Gen Z on this panel, is to build the bridge and to call in our elders and set an example for the generations to come after us. Because now we're in the phase of, I was just talking to my girlfriend last night, she's like, we're actually grown. Like, we don't have to ask anybody to get up in the middle of the night and go across town if we want to. So I believe that we have the opportunity to iterate on our worldview, but partner with the elders like Dr. Edison and Dr. Delaney to learn from their lived experience and how we could craft that with our modern views. So I think that's part of what it's going to take for us to fight back in this cultural war. When we see oligarchs owning social media platforms and manipulating the algorithm to have us fight one another when we should be unified against a singular enemy and a singular focus. So I think that's my main priority, and that's why I've been called to do things like Write More. I've started a publication where it really dives into the concepts of what does building the systems for an enduring movement look like, and how do we cultivate, preserve, and maintain that to make it a more robust foundation for the generations to come. So that's what I would personally have liked to see, that I didn't see much of until I went out on my own to learn about the William McDonald's, the Ruth Sanders, and etc. But I think that it's incumbent upon us, especially of all ages that we live in, an information age, to make sure that information is easily accessible for the next generation and for us right now in this present moment.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's understand like we can become like our own agency. Like I think in the civil rights movement, we often forget that a lot of the beliefs that we kind of cherish today, like the Dr. Kings, and it's at a very young age, right? And I think impact doesn't have an age. And so it's important that we actually understand that we also have like our own power and we can galvanize movements, right? We go through the technology age, the social media, we can galvanize, be more informed, more aware about what's going on in politics and economics, and we have a chance to really ignite the fire behind us. And I think something else I just wanted to mention, that there's a symbol in African culture called Sankofa. And that symbol is kind of represents a bird, and it's been kind of forward with its head turned back, collecting a nugget. And basically kind of showing that history kind of repeats itself, and what we call answers to the future has already happened, right? So when we look at the text today that's happening on a federal level, on every kind of state level, it's happened before, and even in the worst of times, right, when there was meetings and lynchings, and we somehow were still resilient to that. And so I think that, you know, we have it far easier than what it was in the past, and it's something that we kind of get together and we understand to make that impact for ourselves as well.
Well, before I answer, I want to recognize two women that are here: State Representative Brenda Angeles Bowers, as well as State Representative Aisha Davis. So appreciate y'all for always supporting us. But short, yeah, we can clap it up. And so the short answer to your question is yes. But I think in that, one thing to kind of build is that I think as Black people, we have this issue of thinking, and I talk about it a lot because, I mean, it really is a big issue, but instant gratification. Like, we want to win all the battles now. And I think when we look at things that have happened in the past, or we look at those lived experiences of others in other generations, we kind of say, well, they didn't get anywhere, or they were doing the stuff and people are like, oh, we need to go sit down and talk to the elders, but what they were doing wasn't working. But again, like, as I mentioned earlier, like, this is not a sprint. Like, this is something that is supposed to continue to be passed down from generation to generation, because every generation has a part of this fight. And so I think we have to be very mindful that, like, this is a process. And aside from that, just recognizing the role that we all play to that. One of the things, one of my first real, or I guess technical jobs, W-2 jobs, was working for a council member in the city of Fort Worth, was the chief of staff. One of the things that he said while we was on the campaign trail was, if everyone does a little, we can get a lot done. And if you let that really sink in, think about the power that we have collectively as Black people. Like, all of these attacks, whether it's DEI, whatever issue, like, there wouldn't be these attacks if they did not recognize the power that we collectively have. And so when I talk about instant gratification, the fact that we're wanting that instant change, or even when we talk about the fact that, like, it was mentioned already about, you know, Black leadership and that collective, or that power not really being there, being disjointed. Like, we have to recognize that if we come together as a collective, there's so much that we can do, not only when we're talking about preserving our history, not only when we're talking about moving forward, but when we're talking about, when we look at the fights that are happening, and definitely, I want you to pay attention federally, because there's a lot of craziness that's happening there. But when we look even locally at the things that are happening, I mean, I know pretty, and I'm not going to go into it because I'm not a council member, and I don't deal with local issues like that. But, you know, when you talk about what's happening with, you know, the contract around ICE that the city of Dallas is faced with, potentially accepting or not accepting, and just knowing and realizing the target that ICE has on our communities, on what they portray as brown communities, but it's really all minority communities, and what they're going and doing and receiving into these cities that are minority cities. Again, they are trying to further dilute the power that we have as minorities. So again, we just can't get caught up in winning those battles quickly. We got to realize that, again, like, all lived experiences matter, and even if there was something that did not work in the past, like, that is our building block to say, okay, how do we start with this, and then truly figure out what that path forward looks like. Thank you.
And then, like, I want to shout out to the more elected official, Byron Sanders. DI is 835. Thank you for doing that as well.
Just switch that. All right, this is for CNZ. CNZ, how has the internet changed the way Black culture is spread and understood, for better or worse?
That's a good question. I think it's made us more informed. We kind of understand, we're more aware of what's going on in the world. I think it's cool that you can understand, like, what's happening here locally, what's happening in the Northeast, what's happening all around the world. And it's given us much more access and exposure to different cultures, different environments, and what the issues are. I think it's important that social media has been a galvanizing tool to understand and create movements, right? And so that's how we're able to create impact and understand what's happening. But at the same time, it's also reinforced kind of misconceptions, especially within our algorithms. We understand that AI is happening now, and so it's important that we actually understand what's happening on both sides of the spectrum, right? Regardless of where you fall under the political aisle, it's important to really understand what both perspectives are saying, and really learn for yourself, like, what are you able to take in and what you're not able to take in. And so people that don't do that, they just reinforce, like, their own conscious biases. And so that can be very detrimental, because we have extremism down both sides of the aisle. And so it's important to really, you know, use social media as a tool to really create that vacuum, essentially.
Thank you. Okay, this is for all of you guys. Doesn't matter what order you answer in, who goes first, who goes last, but how has music, film, and literature influenced how you express yourself?
Thank you. I try to refrain from being the first person to speak, but because I grew up in a musical household, my uncle owned a record label. I went and was raised in a Baptist church, so my aunt sang on the choir, my cousins played the instruments. That was my lived experience from the time that I was aware of my surroundings. And I'll be honest, because this is what this space is for. Our musicians that represent our experiences and our culture have been co-opted. And it has been such an unfortunate disgrace to see the Sam Cooks turn into the NBA Youngboys, to see the Harry Belafontes. And when I say these names, I don't just talk about their historical significance and their music was cool. Harry Belafonte was a funder of the movement. So when we think of how our movement is being led, we're drastically under-resourced. When you think of who is our opposition, being some of, if not the richest, most wealthiest people in the world, and now when an artist comes to our community and wants to quote-unquote rep a block, and they don't reinvest, and our grassroots organizations have to penny pinch to provide mutual aid services, it shows just how far we've lost touch with the power of arts, literature, and the role that it plays in our culture. I got a chance to read this book called The New Negro by Elaine Locke because I was inspired by the Harlem Renaissance and the role that art played in the liberation and the Black radical tradition. We don't have any of that today. That is being platformed and put in position to reach the hearts and minds of this generation of soldiers. And I think that it's incumbent upon us, with our pocketbooks, with our Apple Music curated playlists, to start holding our artists accountable for the role that they play in the destruction and the role that they could play in the cultivation of our beloved community.
Nobody want to answer that one.
To piggyback on what he said, right?
I don't know how you can, but go ahead.
No, but in all honesty, thank you for that, brother. What I was going to say is, I was at a panel recently at Forrest Steeler at the Human Holocaust Museum, and they talked about how important Forrest Steeler was to actually here locally in Dallas. And so a lot of like the emerging artists, like the Prince, like all like the great artists will come to Forrest Steeler as a fundraising tool for the movement, like you mentioned. And even for me personally, when I came to America, when I was 9 years old, T-Ball, the Black Henry Martinez, was integral to me to understand music and culture. And so I was a T-Ball kid, and I was able to just understand how music and arts really influence how we learn and the impact that it has to like learning new information. And so the arts is great because it enables us to, use our creativeness in different ways. Even throughout history, right, during slavery times, and music was a great tool for us to cope with trauma. Because in actuality, when it comes to blackness all around the world, it's faced with a lot of trauma and atrocities and just subjugation. So music, arts, literature was how we kind of got through things. And so I think it's important to, invest in institutions more than ever right now, like right here, this very place, taking out memberships, supporting. I want to give a shout out to the Pan-African Connection, giving a shout out to the Doc Bookshop, all the local, small businesses here, Sundowns Cultural Center, and really just making sure we put our impact and time and money into an institution like this so we can thrive and be able to educate the next future generations as well. So just a little to add to what he said.
Agreed. Now, this is for all you guys. How do you protect your mental health within this culture? That wasn't on the list.
Yeah, I think that's tough. I'll be honest. I started law school at 21. I graduated college 3 years, I got a 4.0. Then I went to law school at 21, graduated there, became licensed at 25. But I had high blood pressure, pre-diabetic, high cholesterol, and this is I was to take care of myself. And have any of that now, thankfully. I worked out. I've been blessed, but I wasn't doing what I need to do. I have this bad thing. I don't know how to say no. I say yes to everything. I'll answer the phone no matter what time of day it is. I check my email, I text you back. It's so unhealthy. And people don't talk about what it's like to be a high-performing young man or somebody that's black. They tell you be twice as good to get half the results or rewards are. And it's not true. It's just really not. You get like less than half.
Yep.
But you gotta do it. You get less than half and you gotta do it. And then, I didn't say this earlier, but I served on the board at NAACP for 5 years, the national board. I was assistant secretary, the first person under age of 25. But they don't tell you that you even have to fight in your communities. The NAACP board of directors, I loved it. I loved the NAACP. It gave me my start, but it was one of the most toxic environments I've ever been in my life. And that's not, I'm not shaming it, but it's true. It's my story. And so I think that it's just very important. So what I have a therapist, and I go to church. I got a pastor. I got a therapist. I got it all. I got everything you can think of. Gym membership, multiple, but it's hard. It just don't get any better. I'm not gonna lie to you. You can do all these things, and it's difficult. You gotta eat right, and you gotta find an appropriate balance of hanging out, but the appropriate balance of working. They don't tell you like you gotta invest in your 401k and get robbed. It's like there are the things that you have to do to be a successful person in this world because nobody's gonna give you anything. And so it's important to have mentors, but it's also important to just know when enough is enough. I always tell people that try to get me to do something. When I get enough, I'll just stop. Because, folks will say, Traylon, are you eating? Or did you do this? Or did you go? And I'm like, when I get enough, I'll stop. And it's true. I don't know how you combat it, but the reality of it is if you've got enough sleep, the sad truth is that you probably not. And I hate that that's the way it's set up, but it's just the way it is. And I wish I could tell you something different. But I did all of the things that people said I need to do. I stayed in school. I went to the programs. I did this. I did that. I networked. I add you on LinkedIn, and I follow up. And then we go to coffee. And then I go to the next spot. And then I try to work. And then it's like you do all the things, the right things, and it's tiring, it's draining. And then you look at the end of the day, you're like, man, my head hurts, or my back hurts, and I gotta wake up. I'm 25, and I'm like, why is my back hurting? Why do I have to watch what I'm eating? I feel scared. It's just what comes with territory. So I'm answering long-winded, but just do what you can to be healthy. Whether it's walking, whether it's running. My partner Kendall down there, he can run 3 miles every day. But so just do what you got to do to be successful and healthy. And you don't have to have the best therapist or the most expensive therapist, but just do something that works for you. I don't like to journal. I have bad handwriting, but if that works for you, do it. Colored books. There are a lot of things that work, but what I did was therapy. I go to church. I have mentors. I got what I call my board of directors. I can call people and just say, hey, I don't want you to say anything bad, but I'm just going to tell you what's going on. And then after that, I just say, okay, you want to talk about something else, or you want to call me later? And I just answer whatever. But I think those things are necessary because it's hard. It's really hard.
So Traylon does say yes to everything. Sometimes you ask me for some pro bono legal counsel, he'll do it for you. He did for me, but he's smiling now because he did. But no. But what I would say too, it is tough. In short, it's very difficult to be sane. I think the one thing I want to call out though is being a high-achieving black person in white spaces. Because when I was at Morehouse College, and I think Traylon said the same, I could just be black. I could present myself, and I could be in my space, be in my skin, and know I was okay. But when whether I'm at SMU, whether I'm at JP Morgan, I always have to be on every single moment of my life. When I'm in City Hall, I have to be on. You don't know who has a camera nowadays. You don't know who will take what you say a different way. You don't know how anybody will interpret anything that you do, right? Even when I went to Stillhouse Homecoming last week, I'm in Atlanta, I'm like, oh wait, I'm a council member now.
Perception is everything.
Correct. So that right there looms over everybody that is blessed to have our pigmentation, right? That's blessed to have God's blessing of the dark skin that can take in sunlight, unlike some of our other counterparts on earth. So I think the biggest thing I do to make sure that my mental is safe though, like social media, Kendall talked about instant gratification. Like after my campaign, I turned Facebook off. Like I got rid of Facebook. Facebook is derived in like that family, that friendship, like that first sphere of influence. And that can be the most toxic one. Like, I mean, there are people that you really know. And you're like, man, like I didn't know you thought that way. So I'll turn that off sometimes. Like, hey, you know. But I think one thing in this work that I use is like my barometer to see if I'm sane. You can always tell how you're doing as a public servant based on who's mad at you. Because you know you can't please everybody. You know you win elections by 51% plus one, all that kind of stuff. So you know 49%. And all of the above, and things like that. Thank you. I know I was talking too long. My mic got turned off. But I think those are the ways, right? Just making sure you have those moments of silence. I started getting up a little bit earlier, around like that 5 o'clock hour. Going to the gym, like instead of just sitting in my space and just being myself. Because ultimately, as soon as that time of 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, the questions start coming in, and now you got to deal with all this other stuff, and that just isn't yourself. But yeah.
Master, when do you start answering email?
When do I start answering emails? You know, the earliest I've ever answered an email is 6:30 in the morning. Yeah.
Time you called me this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to build on the high-performing individual piece because I think, again, no one will ever truly know or understand kind of that feeling and what it is to kind of operate in there because you not only have the standards from your family, because, of course, that's inherited. Your family, they know you from the time you're born up until you leave this earth. But, you know, couple that with everyone on the outside, people you go to school with, people in your community, them starting to hold you to certain expectations. And I would say for me, you know, and very similar to Trey, you know, I kind of started, I graduated high school with my associates at 17. I started working as chief of staff to a council member in the city of Fort Worth at 18, youngest to ever do it in city history. You know, I then go on to the Hill at 19, being deputy chief of staff, the youngest senior staffer in the history of the U.S. House of Representatives, for, you know, someone who is now one of the most popular Democratic members of Congress or elected officials. You know, you talk about all of those things, and, you know, it's good to be able to throw that out, but you don't talk about the pressures associated. You know, everyone on this panel know, but, you know, last month in September, I was balanced by a woman that I have never met in my life. But a woman who is a crazy, MAGA spewing person that all she does or aims to do is to incite hate against people. And so, you know, imagine being at dinner and then you look down on your phone to get all these notifications on an app that you barely use, Twitter or X. But, you know, you have all these notifications of all these people saying all of this craziness. People who you do not even know, and a post that starts off at, you know, I think maybe like 10,000 likes or whatnot when I first saw it after like an hour when I was posted. Wake up the next morning and there's over like 56,000 likes. And all of these retweets and all of this other people saying all these things, people calling, people trying to show up at my home, people trying to do all of this craziness. And so again, I think there is one, as you continue to climb, there's always going to be the extra kind of push, if you will. We just have to learn how to deal with that. But I think the real conversation that we really got to have, and I don't know that we will ever truly have it, is that like within our community, we have to learn how to extend one another grace. Because like similar to Trey, you know, I'll say yes to you. So long as I can physically do it, or I'm physically in that space, I am going to be there and do it. And, you know, that may come with staying up until 1 a.m., 2 a.m. to make sure that something is done. That may come at a cost of me having to do an hour drive or whatnot. And so I think, you know, currently what I do, of course, they mentioned, you know, I run, you know, the other Trey, John, the councilman, he likes to call me sometimes and throws me off course while I'm running. But nevertheless, so running daily, but also too, just really carving out time and carving out space to be with my people. Like the people that I know if I call them, if I'm on the phone with them, if we're out together, like we may talk about politics a little bit, but we don't have to get into that. Like we can just be our own selves. And so, you know, my cousin Jordan is here. She's someone that, you know, I will call and just kind of talk through all the things. I mean, everyone on this stage, I mean, we we hold space for each other because that's required in this space. And all of us, it's good to be able to hold space with people that are, one, they have as much to lose as you, but also they understand the true pressures of what this work is and what that work's bring. Because again, we're all, I mean, for the most part, under the age of 30. Like, we can't go to a bar and like get overly lit. Like, we can't do that unless we want to end up on someone's like Facebook group and have people posting and doing all this craziness. Like, we can't. There's certain things and boundaries that unfortunately at a very early age has been placed on us, and that comes with that added stress. So again, I think for me, it's carving out the time to just be with my people that takes me out of this political realm or the work mode, but then also to just really making sure that I'm pouring into kind of myself from a health perspective, from a mental perspective, all the things.
Sweet. So I think I'm going to try and address this question from the point of getting back to how do we protect the culture. And I would say my involvement in not just participating in cultural institutions, but trying to build my own among my family has been a practice that over the past year has just been eye-opening. Every Sunday, I get to spend time with my grandparents. We go out after church and get a meal, talk about the way that we see the world, and we use that time that we break bread to share stories and perspectives and just create space for one another. That then turns into my Sunday is like my recon day. So I take a scalpel and like look at everything that I've done over the previous week, and then I use the remaining time from there to then chart out what my goals and objectives are for the week ahead. And I always make sure that I allocate time for me to just sit still and do nothing. And that has allowed me the opportunity to really reckon with my feelings and how I feel about myself in the world. And it allows me to show up more authentically in spaces that, as Trey mentioned earlier, there are a ton of spaces that want you to compartmentalize and essentially kill your self-identity to fit into somebody else's perceived notion of who you are and what you're supposed to be. And just combating that and being willing to do it, even with that hint of uncertainty and sometimes fear, it just reinforces why it's so important to be done in the first place. And I've been doing this practice since October of 2024, so now every week I can go through my journal over the span of a year and look at how my thought process has shifted, how my habits that I've tracked have been able to stay accountable to those things. And I believe that I've been made a better man because of it. But to end off here, I think that is a part of the institutions that we opt into, like our faith tradition, like the role that we play, especially. I think we could all talk on a whole different panel about this, but as young black men and our evolution of our role in our family and how we have to show up and now at times take care of those that once took care of us and the weight that that brings. So just reconciling all of that has been a part of my mental health journey this past year.
I think for me, scheduling rest days, because we get so busy, we just work socially, professionally, and we oftentimes forget the most important person, which is ourselves. And I think that's important to find some time just to schedule your calendar. Hey, I'm not going to do anything this day. And I also feel guilty about it. Because oftentimes we'll, do nothing all day and we feel guilty like we're not efficient, we're not effective, and, it's needed that you have those relaxing times. Going traveling, going by the water, going to nature, going to the gym like it was mentioned. So just taking care of yourself as well. And also the people that you keep around you is a big part of your mental health. I had a good mentor mindset that if they can't control you, sometimes they control the narrative without you. It's important to, when you find those people in your life that, are having that taxing on your mental health, to separate yourself away from that. Because separation requires elevation. And so I think it's important that for your own mental health to really invest in time in yourself and also people that really make you feel better about yourself as well.
It's pretty good, man. You follow behind Nicholas and nailed it.
Yeah, I tried.
This is for all you guys here. If you could change one thing
current Black culture, I would change the way in which we advocate for things. I think that there was a time in which Black people were pragmatists. Now we want all or nothing. We want, and you, it's like, you know, I do not do this as much as I used to, but I was known for leading protests around here. You know, we say, if we don't get it, shut it down. No. It's not shut it down. We've got to figure out the way to get to where we're trying to get to. We've gone for this 100 to 0 approach as opposed to taking 60-40. It's incremental change. Nothing that we have that we get in one setting. It just never happened. It was advocacy, and Black people used to be pragmatists. I don't care if you're a liberal Black person or if you're conservative. There are very few pragmatists, and Black pragmatism is dying every single day. If I could change one thing, I don't care about your ideology. I just want you. I do care, but have it. But across the board, we just stop being pragmatists. We want all or nothing. If you don't give it to us, we don't like you. We're gonna cancel you, and you're not one of us. You can be conservative. Just be a good person. You can be liberal. Just be a good person. Just be the pragmatist. Take what we can get, and let's keep moving. Don't take the bait where it's like, oh, you know, we want all of this or none of this. I saw it when I was in Berkeley. I saw it when I was in New Orleans. I see it now that I'm back here in Dallas. It's just the way that we operate now. It's unfortunate, and it causes us to lose out on a lot because we want this everything or nothing.
Gratification.
Yeah.
And I think my answer would definitely to the question that this was Traylon's thread. Just our essence of non-collaboration. We don't like to collaborate with each other. Like us sitting up here as 5 Black men is a great thing to see, right, on a stage, because even when I had my small business, thank you for talking but even when I had my small business, somebody kept asking me, like, John, first of all, my family calls me Trey, so that's why like, a lot of people call me Trey, by the way, but they're like, John, how did you get a team of 3 Black men, 2 Black women, and somebody else to make a fragrance company together, right? It's unheard of. They're like, how do you get Black people to team up and work together? Which we saw a lot of when we did have progressive movements in our culture back in the 60s, right? Like civil rights, people were working together, whether it was Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, different strategies. But we all can figure out, hey, look, if we want to move forward, we don't want to look back. But now we're looking at each other in a crosshair mindset of like, oh, if you can do it, I need to do it better than you. So that's what I would change for sure.
I think for me, it would be just this idea that there has to be one particular person that scores the win for the culture. Like for me, I don't care who is leading the charge or who is leading on one particular issue. Like it's good for the culture, it's good for Black people, like it's good for Black people. And so I think for me that would be the one thing, because again, I think all of us have a role to play. And you know, there's going to be people that's behind the scenes, there's going to be people that's out front, there's going to be people on all sides of things. But again, so long as we are advancing things for the benefit of not only, again, protecting the culture, but of course moving things forward, like I don't care who's the one to do it. And I think we also have to, you know, stop the generational fights that we have, and recognizing that, you know, we may not want to draw on what someone, you know, back in the day. So I'm 23, so, you know, say there's an elder in the community leader. But like being completely honest, we have community leaders who are pillars in our community that will not collaborate with each other because of some old back in the day Bible, and they will not collaborate with each other for no reason. Or there's an issue when you have a trade, both of the trades, but you know, John get elected to city council at his age. When you have a Byron Sanders come on the scene, you know, when you have someone like me that is not traditionally from Dallas, from the Metroplex, but not traditionally from Dallas, come over to Dallas and, you know, start working in this political space. So I think we have to be we have to be accepting of people, regardless of where they are, what lived experience they bring. We have to be willing to, again, to that word of collaboration, we have to be willing to collaborate and recognize the role that we all can play when we're moving as that collective.
You know,
honestly struggle with this question because I think there's so many things that we need to be really focused on. But I do think that the biggest priority is combating the culture that is impressed upon us and building our own muscles and reflexes to chart out what we collectively decide our culture to be. And what I mean by that is we are living in a world that prioritizes and tries to impress upon us an isolationist culture. That we have to do it on our own, we can't collaborate with one another, which is what we've heard throughout the other panelists. But I think that if we get out of an individualistic society and into a more community-driven society, we'll see the rewards from that be compounded, because it's not just, okay, well, I'm doing for a trade out of expensive Nick, but it's what can Trey and Nick come together to produce for the broader community. And I think that was, and I really want us to be very honest about calling out the forces at play here. There are people that want us to be individualistic, want us to be isolationist, because they know that if we were to come together and practice mutual aid and want to support one another for genuine intentions, then look, we are going to be, they're going to be in trouble. So that's something that I really think our culture needs to be specifically focused on.
I want to add, like, the point of succession planning. I think oftentimes a lot of great organizations that fall because one person had all the institutional knowledge of that organization. And so we need to really start organizing and documenting things and processes and putting systems in place and also identifying people like the next person who's going to come in your role, right? Because when we leave these organizations, we won't be there forever, right? So it's important that we start tapping into like the next person, the next group that's going to be taking on the charge and leading the movement. So that's something I would think.
Thank you. Now we're gonna open it up to the audience. Anybody have any questions for these guys?
One, just shout out to you brothers for inspired. I saw the flyer pop up. I'm like, I'm coming. I want to hear what these brothers doing. And actually, shout out to the African American Museum for hosting us. You guys, you touched on this a little bit. I would love to hear a little bit more from it, from you all about this. We talked about community. We talked about all of the ways that we should take care of ourselves. I want to hear one of the most impressive things, quite frankly, is y'all's friendship and your brotherhood, and how y'all are staying connected, even though you're doing different things in different kinds of ways. Talk about how specifically brotherhood, black brotherhood, is a feature in your journeys, in your leadership, and the kind of impact that you're trying to have in the community.
I'll go ahead and take it from here, man. I think that Black brotherhood and that solidarity, that's an aspect that really pours life into the work that we do and reaffirms the direction in which we head. I got a chance to sit on a call with Reverend Al Sharpton a few weeks ago, and he was talking about the bigger name civil rights groups and how, although they don't do the same thing, they operate their unique lanes to come together to form a highway. So the fact that we have a financial professional, the fact that we have a policy professional, and that we have a legal professional, and then community organizers, that cohesiveness and how we come together, it makes it a seamless way for us to better organize in our communities, but then also ground our friendship and understanding that we all have our unique skills that we can bring and perspectives that help to make us a better friend. So, you know, I've been organizing alongside Traylon and Kendall specifically because we all have a background in the NAACP. But then when I went to Morehouse and I got to meet Trey, I said, hold on, like this is what Dallas is producing, the best that we got to offer. Like, we fired up because of what the generation has to offer. And then when I got to cross paths with Cienzi, I believe in this room, I said, man, The future is in good hands. And we have not fell out or had any petty drama or any of that because we all know, for one, what's at stake. But two, we have a deep overstanding, not an understanding, but an overstanding of our unique perspectives and how we're able to craft the world better in our image. And without Black Brotherhood, I don't think that would have been possible. I don't think we would have shown up as the way that we did today without that.
And I think the other part of that is, I mean, like, there's the saying, you know, we're all we're God, or we're all that we got. But that's truly kind of like, I think, what a lot of this friendship, but just our other friendships with, of course, other Black males in the space has really been. I mean, like, going to John, for example, like when he was running for city council, that would drag him like every single day, like on social media, sending mail, doing craziness. And it was like a collective of like his brothers, like us, like saying, like, okay, like screw that, we gonna be there for you. Whether that's dollars, whether that's showing up at the polls, and it may not even be like, I know for me, I wasn't able to be in Rowlett. I mean, no offense. I wasn't no offense to the state reps as well. But I wasn't able to be in Rowlett all the time. So I pulled up on election day, and it's just like showing up. It's that presence. Even with the situation that I had with Laura Loomer, I never had to say anything because I had people like them and everybody else in the community that was clapping back on her. So it's just like, you know, these are the people that you go to when stuff, of course, is going well, and you want those people surrounding you to be able to celebrate you because you know that you're going to have that built-in support system. But also, too, like, these are the people that when, like, shit gets deep and it gets sticky, like, these are people that's here. And too, like Sean, Carl, like, these are people when we are doing things, like, we support each other. Like, if Trey is on the panel doing something, we're gonna be there. If Izzy is doing something, like, we are intentional about ensuring that, again, back to what I mentioned earlier, holding space for one another, because of what we recognize is that, like, it's not just about, like, being able to go out or do whatever, like, it's about just showing up. And so that presence, like, that goes so far and can make the world of difference. And to the question that we had earlier about, like, mental health, like, you never know what somebody is going through or what on any given day, like, we may have encountered at that point in time. So even being like me, John and Trey, like, we got a group chat, like, posting, like, just putting something in there, like, it could be the most ridiculous thing, but recognizing how that may, like, uplift a day when, like, John may be on council and having something going on. I may be in DC and just, like, got privy to, like, some crazy bill or some crazy action that's about to happen on the floor. Or, like, Trey got some craziness that's happening in his world. But again, it's just all about, like, you never know what that means. And that's the value that we hold kind of close. And that's why I think we continue to ensure that we're pouring into that brotherhood.
These brothers are so deep. Let me tell you. To the heart of your question, bourbon, tequila. I mean, yeah, these things are true, but like we can get around each other and just be like, we don't have to, like, well, you know, I think it's not, no, it's like just how many shots, like everybody get one, or you know, it's I know Kendall said something earlier. I'm not saying it's mine, but look here, it's true. I don't work for any elected official. I'm not one myself, so I can drink. I can do that. As long as I order, it's not illegal. And I don't even post me on Instagram. We have no prior work. I don't know. So that's what I do. I mean, you know, I'm not saying we only drink, but Trey and I are the same fraternity. I mean, we have different ways that we. If they know something that's going on that they think I should come to, they'll say, hey, show up to this. And it's been several times. Kendall, he can get you in anywhere. I don't know if y'all don't know Kendall. He can get you in anywhere. And I just come to they're like, what you got? I'm like, oh, Kendall. They're like, oh, come in. So, but that's just, I mean, it's like, I think in many ways we're each other's safe spaces. Like, we can say what we gotta say, and then if we're wrong, we say, hey, bro, that's not,
you're wrong. Or if we right, it's like, yeah, no, they're wrong, but like, you know, I'm here if you need me, just let me know what to do. But they being deep, but really what they, we just have a good time together in each other's safe space, and you know, they're being deep though.
I'm gonna be a little deep on the first end of my question, the first end of my answer, but I think the essence of Black Brotherhood, right, going to Morehouse, the only school that's there to really develop Black men to lead lives of leadership and service. Black Brotherhood can let me know that I love myself, right? Like understanding that I can see somebody else and be like, I love you, like Traylon, Nick, CNT, Kendall, like I love each of you guys, and I mean that from my heart. Thank you. But and also to what Traylon said, like, yeah, like we have a great time, right? But I think it's in having that great time that you're also being held accountable by your brothers. Like, hey, that may, like, whether it be on a vote, whether it be on a bill that Kendall's talking about, like, we get to really penetrate, like, hey, how does this help the Black community at a different level? And I think that's one of the biggest things that Black Brotherhood continues to lift you up. Because, like he said, like, Sean saw it firsthand, like, Robert was treating me horrible, like, during my campaign period. David knows it firsthand. But, you know, things happen and times change, but the only thing that didn't change was every one of these brothers up here on the stage being there for me, and everybody, my brother, Nick is here now in the audience being there as well, so yeah, that is, and Courtney and Gabby, all the team too as well. But yeah, no, thank you for asking that question, man.
I think for me, growing up, I always heard the stat, like, 1 in 3 Black men is expected to go to prison. That's always like a stat that I always read, like, growing up. And for me, I really want to, like, redefine that stereotype, right? I think it's important that we collectively are all doing things in different lanes, and kind of that brotherhood kind of helping us get that space. So whether that's like going to the fair together, or going to Whiskeys, or the drinks, or like keeping us motivated, right? I called him today after his run, like, you know, to support him and see what he's doing. And so I think it's a way for us to like keep ourselves accountable and just be able to just, you know, all in different lanes and making sure that we do our thing and support each other as well. So.
CNT, I want to say though, CNT is the one that usually does call randomly. Like he is a brother's brother. He will call you and make sure that you're okay. So we do appreciate you, CNT, bro.
Don't tell like someone is going to Reese. She's the reason we're having this discussion right today.
I just, you guys, I told them my 2 rules before like the conversation started, and they followed both of them. I won't tell you the second one. This is the African American Museum, and these are our African American young men. If I would be patronizing, I would say all the things that white people expect from us to say. Aren't they brilliant? Aren't they smart? Aren't they? These are our children. But today they're our leaders. And I welcome you, gentlemen, and I appreciate each one of you for what you're doing. I just have to take us back a step and say that in the space where I work in this building, there's a series of portraits in my office of Frederick Douglass, and I see those portraits every day. The evolution of the man, Frederick Douglass. And he talks about remembering our power. I just have to say a couple of words because I wrote them and I'm not going to say them all, but I'm going to post them somewhere so you can see that Douglass warned us that when a nation forgets, it risks its soul. And when people allow others to define or erase their story, they surrender their strength. I'm going to skip around a little bit because what I want you to know is that this museum is not simply a building for displaying art or for protecting the archival documents here. It is a vault of memory. And we are empowering these young men to take it away from us, from Lisa and I, from Dr. Robinson and I. But this museum can't protect our collective memories alone. It needs more men. And I am not being sexist here, but I'm being very intentional about about talking about the power of our young men. Some of you may be old enough to remember that this building was built by Harry Robbins, Marvin Robbins, Billy Allen, and Hugh Robinson, 4 brothers who put their names and their money and their time on the line. And it's up to us to keep that going forward. When we think about the 4 quadrants, we think about our lives, our work, we think about our work lives, and we think about our life's work. This work is my life's work. I don't expect for it to be yours, but I expect for you to understand that this is a place where you can learn and take your instinct forward. Frederick Douglass told us that we have to do with the past only what we can make useful for the future. And that's what we're doing here today. And I'm going to skip to asking Mike to come back and join me. This here. This brother right here is trying his best to get away from me, but I am not. So I charged him. You know, his job is to rent the space, to bring people in here to pay to use this space. I'm changing that. Your job is to bring these men back. Listen, nobody tells me. Douglass says to us, a man is worked upon by what he works on. He may carve out his circumstances, but his circumstances will carve him out as well. And Michael, your circumstances is that I am here as your big sister to tell you that you can do more to make this institution visible to the young men in this community. And I am charging you today in front of these people to do that. And I am appointing you, anointing you to lead this group and others to a new category. I don't sleep at night. That we are calling, as of today, trustees of memory. I'm charging you with building a 100 group strong of trustees, black men, trustees of this memory. Do you accept? Listen, I tease Michael all the time, but he grew up in this community. This is his neighborhood. This is his museum. These are his young mentees, and I suspect that sometimes you guys mention him. But we need all of you in this room to understand that there are mics everywhere who see themselves only so big because of what you guys are describing, all the pressures, right, that we live through. And before I leave this earth, Michael Simons will become a leader in this institution, bringing our young men to this place. I hope that you will take the time to go upstairs and see the exhibition, Protecting Cultural Memory. It is not yet finished, only just begun. This activity today, bringing these young men, so the next activity, Michael, that you will so happily do, is bring our elders to the stage. We need to bring our elders so that we can learn from them as well. And I just want to say again, thank you to you, Michael. I really appreciate you. I give you a hug. Douglass says to us, we have plenty of work to do. We need to be not a drizzle. We need to be the thunder. We don't need to fight fire with a little match. We need to fight fire with fire. I used to be an activist who said something about 1965. I'm from that era, but this is the time for us no longer to be shy. This is not the time for us to be quiet. Take care of yourself. Thank you all for saying that in your various professions. I respect you. I expect that you will now, as trustees of memory, will bring the masses to this place so we can celebrate who we are and where we're going. Thank you all.
I'd like to thank all you guys for coming out and participating, backing me up on this. And they showed. I threw some questions at you guys that you didn't expect. Because the end was like, Mike, I want this person, I'm like, nah. That's why I threw the hard ones away. But no, it's a privilege to have you guys out here with me. John told me this morning, he goes, I said, John, I'm not gonna narrate. John goes, I'm not doing it if you're not gonna narrate. We're good, man. Let's get out of here.